Here's how you don't make an open world game. I know we all love walking and exploring untouched worlds and coming across cool scenery such as woods, the occasional hostile fortress, and, water. This is $20. I bought this Chinese game on sale recently and I have to tell you, I am in love. I feel like that food critic in Ratatouille because this game is a masterpiece. The game has so much to it and it just lets you do whatever the hell you want. A good example of this would be when, in the tutorial, I killed one of the party members who is meant to carry the story forward, by the way, and also happens to be a woman, and I subsequently gained the trait of woman hater after purposely killing her. This is real, and it makes you do extra damage to female enemies. What the hell? For what it is, this game has a ridiculous amount of depth, and I was encapsulated in its world without feeling overwhelmed. So why can't these guys do that? Remember when you used to like open worlds? Remember when you used to like explore? I mean, what the hell is this? Some of these open worlds have gotten so bad that they genuinely turn me off open world games almost permanently. Do you know how much a man has to go through to start enjoying archaic Game Boy RPGs where you mash the A button for 12 hours? I am a broken man. It looks like I'm not the only one with this sentiment either, since a lot of people have expressed their discontent with how open world games have been the past few years. And of course, I'm not too happy with them either, so I'm gonna get up on my soapbox and be the man of the people and tell you exactly how to make a game like these people. Have fun making a giant piece of crap for your first game. It'll sell like fucking hotcakes. Oh, and I'll be telling it in chapters, by the way, because why not? The 3D open world of the game started with Bubsy 3D, and everything else since then has been a downward spiral. I have just been informed that the first technically 3D open world game was Mercenary in 1985. My parents have been lying to me. During the late 80s and 90s, developers began to experiment more with giving players control in their 3D environments. Games like Draken, The Terminator 1990, and oh my god, The Adventures of Robin Hood in 1991. This doesn't count, you're not invited to the club, kid. Some of these games, while not technically 3D, put you in a space that sort of replicates that in a way. One thing I really like about these early open world games is how contained they are. Nothing feels bloated. I mean, they still play like pieces of crap, but maybe that's my Zoomer brain coming out. It doesn't really feel like the devs were trying to cram in an entire universe in this one game. I mean, they couldn't do that anyway, but I think the limitations do these games a favor in a way. Don't get me wrong, there were plenty of pieces of garbage that came out during the period where game designers were trying to figure out how to 3D, but when done competently, it comes out timeless. This pseudo 3D would later become the real radical 90s 3D we all love with its polygons and its hell yes. With more freedom comes more opportunity, as Robert E. Lee famously said, and man do we see that freedom alright. Not only did we witness a gaming revolution, but we also saw so much more diversity in how these open world games operate. Yes, they're still relatively contained in their own little virtual worlds, but more unique flair can be added to how they function. And let me tell you, many different branching paths of genres and types of games would emerge with the evolving technology. Open world shooters, collectathons, RPGs, it just keeps going. It keeps expanding. Just look at how far things have come in only 5 years. Mario 64 next to Final Fantasy X. Now we've got all these cool 3D games like GTA San Andreas, Gothic 1, and Fallout 3. Oh my god. Sorry, you're not invited to the club, kid. Go hang out with the Robin Hood dude. As we get closer and closer to the modern day, I want to ask myself, at what period did I stop liking open worlds? Well, of course, I don't want to constrain myself to one specific period of time, since there are a lot of games, even in the early years, that I dislike. But I believe there's a specific period of time where the diversity of open worlds begin to diminish for whatever reason. I don't want to say the bigger the open world is, the worse it is, because that's simply not true. With the evolving tech and experience devs have with designing 3D open spaces, of course they're going to make bigger environments. It all comes down to how they're used, really. I'm not going to lie, a lot of these 2000s games do feel empty, but I oddly enough don't feel like my soul is being sucked from my body when I play them. But this sucks. I love games where I do nothing for 40 hours other than the main mission and blowing up some baddies over and over again. That's where chapter 2 comes in, baby. Fun open worlds. Now those suck actually. I heard you love boring things. Screw gameplay, man. Immersion is key, and if you want to create the most immersive open world game of all time, just follow these steps I'm going to lay out to you. You, sir, are the future of game design, so I'm going to make sure you create the most bland piece of dog doo-doo ever crafted by human hands. Step 1. Create a vast open world with absolutely nothing to do. Remember, size trumps everything. I'm sure you've been told that many times. The bigger the better, and it doesn't matter if 75% of the world is empty filler. As long as you can brag about the size of the map in the announcement trailer, you're fine. Immersion is key. I mean, look at this tree. Where will you find this anywhere else? To help sustain the illusion that our world is vast, stuff it full of random ass enemy outposts and scatter a few strong enemies here and there. Oh no, that's too competent for you, huh? We'll make it so every single enemy outpost feels the exact same. Ladies and gentlemen, we got them. In fact, make it a nuisance to fight enemies. Remember in Fallout New Vegas where you were itching to fight enemies every chance you got? That sucks. Immersion is key, so make fighting an absolute chore. Fighting isn't fun in real life, guys. Fighting sucks. We're gonna make it suck too. Make the gameplay loop so boring that it feels like forced labor rather than an actual fun thing. Make a group of Vietnamese kids play the forest, and it immediately becomes a human rights violation. Just in case the world may still feel a little bit empty though, don't forget to scatter around NPCs every now and then to give you dumbass side quests. Side quests aren't even supposed to be fun. You need to put all your eggs in the main story and then add side quests as a distraction to how devoid your game is. Give the player the illusion of choice, a false taste of freedom, like giving somebody an Impossible Burger and telling them it's real meat. Some games give the false notion that the world is bigger than it actually is, like Dragon Quest XI, which masterfully is able to make the world feel more alive. By making smaller worlds like this, you're able to cram in much more and make things feel much bigger than they actually are without devoting needless resources to them. That sucks though and isn't marketable at all, so let's abandon that, wide as an ocean and deep as a 14-year-old's Tumblr page. Step number 2, remember when Gaben said,
and so we had to come up with some notion of what fun was. We knew it was an ad hoc definition, and it was the degrees to which the game recognizes and responded to the player's choices and actions.
Replicate that, but don't do it. Devote all your time to the main story and make the open world feel like an afterthought rather than the main focus. In Red Dead Redemption 2, the setting is integral to the story, gameplay, and let's be real, it's just plain fun to explore, despite it not being the most varied thing in the world compared to other games. The interaction takes up just as much focus as anything else in the game, and there are so many small details inserted to it that it feels like there are hundreds of stories happening simultaneously. It takes too much time, man. Force the player into your narrative? No, in fact, bash them over the head with it and constantly remind them of it throughout the game. Make it feel like the entire world you've been placed in revolves solely around you and your story. The best thing about these open world games is being able to escape the main story for a bit and craft your own narrative, or engage in other smaller ones completely disconnected from the main one you're invested in. That's what made open world games so popular in the first place. That's not how we roll though. Make all the side quests related to the main story in some way. Make enemies all related to the main story. Hell, make random ass items connected to the main narrative in some sort of way. It makes everything feel so small, it almost completely contradicts our goal of a vast world in the first place. Imagine if in GTA 5, everybody for some reason knows the main story and talks about it in every conversation you have with them. It wouldn't even feel like a city anymore. The main story would just be diluted down to feeling like small town gossip. Step number 3, do what works. No. You are not going to innovate in my 3D interactive experience. Do what you know and nothing else. Who needs to push the envelope anyway when you have money to make? Course, our medium wouldn't exist without the pioneers that existed before us and took the risks to make our vision a reality. And they did that so we could make the same game 5 times with a different coat of paint. God bless them. Do you know how to make every game the same? Follow a formula while barely going off the beaten path. You know, Far Cry Primal, a really unique idea, an open world survival story game where you play as a stupid caveman. Hell, the idea is unique and it has a lot of potential, but nah, it's actually all really boring, looks the same, it's just a worse version of the Far Cry formula, but now he's Ooga Booga Caveman dude. Sure, there are a few new cool things here, but nothing here is new per se, just rehashed and reshaped from already pre-existing things. It feels so incredibly bland, and the new stuff is just ridiculously shallow. The crafting is super basic, the taming is dull, and the environments, while beautiful, are extremely dull as well. All the enemy outposts look the same and it gets so tiring. It's false innovation, coming up with a seemingly unique idea but doing nothing new with it. That's like if I said I invented a new drink and just ripped a tequila recipe off of Google, but poured a bottle of Tylenol in the mix and called it the Pixar Surprise. The surprise is gonna be you waking up in the ER. Open worlds are hard, so why even bother doing hard things anyway? Remember what JFK said? We choose not to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because we are lazy pieces of crap. God bless America. Who needs innovation when someone else can do it for you? This is the state of our games. Look, I'm not throwing any shit at devs here. I know they're just doing their jobs, and it's really the company's fault anyway. Money has a mind of its own, and the worst thing is, these games aren't even that bad. They're just bland, milquetoast, by the books. Being derivative isn't necessarily a bad thing, and it certainly doesn't make for a bad experience. I don't hate modern games, I just hate how many of them are so similar to one another. I'm not averse to playing the new things, but I just prefer the old, more groundbreaking things, even if they've aged. When something does break ground these days, it shatters everything we've experienced previously and opens the floodgate for more innovation and experimentation. But while those floodgates are open, there are some developers and franchises that apprehensively move forward at a snail's pace, changing ever so slightly, ensuring they don't fall behind, while also not making the drastic changes needed to make a more enjoyable experience. Look at me, I'm breaking character. Let's go on to chapter 3. Now that you have the 3 steps to ensure you made some good old open world schlock, let's take a look at some bland, mediocre, and straight up bad open worlds throughout the years so we can replicate their terribleness. Draken, can I even blame them for this one? It's harsh, I know, and personally, I actually have a really soft spot for this game. But hey, that doesn't mean it's good. For what it is, it's revolutionary and still extremely unique over 30 years later. I mean, what can you really expect? The open world is confusing and everything is archaic. Me, when the 30-year-old game with technical limitations isn't a masterpiece. Even though I would call the game bad and not fun to play, the atmosphere is unmatched. The world doesn't feel feel empty at all, and I can really commend the devs for how they handled things here. I'd recommend you play it, even if I wouldn't call it good, but hey, the sequel's much better. Don't buy it on Steam though. I did it and the controls, they suck ass. Donkey Kong 64, oh man, I'm gonna get some hate for this one. I like this game though. It's just too much. I mean, it's an early 3D game, so I can kind of forgive it for its faults, but it falls into so many traps these early games fell into. The world is small, but they pack in a lot of content to make it feel more alive. I think they may have packed in a little bit too much though. There's too much fluff that makes it feel like they were trying to make the game more grand than it actually is. It's the literal definition of bloated. I like it personally, but I don't necessarily like playing it for too long. Good game with bad aspects that a lot of open worlders fall into. Final Fantasy VIII, does this even count as an open world game? Whatever, I'm putting it here anyway. This game I like it, but the open world aspect of it is genuinely one of the worst things I've ever experienced in gaming. It's so freaking tedious and straight up not fun. I'm gonna glaze FF7 for a quick second here. That game's open world was mesmerizing. It felt empty, but in an atmospheric way, like it was intentional. The world felt empty but still lived in at the same time, because that's how it's supposed to be. Finding the secrets of the game was always a joy, and I loved exploring the world. It felt huge to me. FF8's open world is as fun of an experience as the Opium Wars. In fact, it made me want to do Opium to cope with how soul-draining exploring this world is. It just feels empty, and it falls into the trap of feeling like the entire world revolves around your party and the main story. It doesn't feel like there's a world outside the main narrative. Everything revolves around Squall and that's it. I mean, he is saving the world here, so I guess that can justify it, but it doesn't deflect from the feeling that everything just feels so immeasurably small here. It's just not fun to explore, and the vastness feels fake, and the secret locations are a burden to me as well. I like the game, but man, I can't stand it. It's kind of contradictory actually. Superman 64. Need I say more? I sometimes get PTSD flashbacks, and all I see is rings. Sons of the Forest, screw me, dude. I'm gonna get so much hate for this. My friends forced me to buy this, and I do not like it. If I wasn't playing with my friends, I would have refunded it in a heartbeat. There's no variety in the setting, which would be fine if the atmosphere was at least there, which it isn't. Everything feels so barren, and again, that would be fine if the mechanics were actually fleshed out. When it comes to survival games, the open world is only really meant to complement the gameplay. But what is this complementing? Killing the same enemies over and over and over again, and riding a wheelie while constantly crashing into trees? It's nothing. It just feels like all nothing. Just go to California if you want to experience this. Plenty of forests and plenty of zombies, aka crackheads. Skyrim. Nah, I'm just kidding. Let's just go into the next chapter, please. I like open worlds in any genre, and I want them done well. Humans are naturally explorers, so it's good that that urge can finally be satisfied through a screen. I just wanted to point out some mediocre games and bad practices I noticed in some games. Anyway, I'm going back to my China game again. Time to start a peasant revolt.